Hey there, welcome back to Tennille Talks. So this is a reading highlighting a family. And within this family, there is a small group of its members that has an awareness of a secret that can be found in this family's genealogy. And so the family members that hold on to this secret, this is not something that's widespread that everybody knows, but the family members specifically that hold on to this secret, they can be identified by a single trait or a characteristic that is found in their persona. And so as a divine being, speaking about you, the fruits of the Spirit are evident in how you show up to the world, right? And so the members, however, of this family, they display fruits of the flesh. And so in your family, you display a level of kindness that is not found in the character traits of the other family members. And so your kindness tends to shine through as you being selfless, caring, compassionate, being unconditionally kind, which means that your kindness is unreserved. There is no prejudice in how you decide to bestow it upon others, right? It is for everyone because you understand that everyone is deserving. There is no hierarchy, there is no rank. And so on the contrary, you personally may have experienced rudeness and situations where members of your family were deliberately impolite to you and any other people that they deemed worthy of that kind of treatment. Now, before moving on, I'd like to uncover the fruits of the Spirit and the opposing fruit of the flesh, right? So there's love versus hate or indifference, which essentially is lacking care for another's well-being. There's joy versus despair and envy, peace versus discord, patience versus impatience and selfish ambition, kindness versus animosity, contempt and jealousy, goodness versus impurity, corruption and immorality, gentleness versus rage and roughness, faithfulness versus idolatry, disobedience, and irresponsibility. And lastly, self-control versus drunkenness, sexual immorality, and manipulation. Now, the fruits of the flesh that weave throughout the personalities of your family members is an indication of something hidden in their genealogy. And so the records of your family group, they can be traced back to a single ancestor that at some point began a spiritual practice involving libations. And so libations typically are going to be liquid offerings to a deity. Now, it could be gin, it can be a form of alcohol, but essentially you use a liquid as a way to invoke and you use it as a way to offer something, right? It's a ritual where you are giving something away to something outer worldly, something supernatural. There is a family member alive and well today that is at the forefront of upholding this practice. So although this could have began generations ago, I feel like every generation has a member that kind of carries the torch. And so there is someone in your family today that is carrying the torch of this ritual, this practice. And so your connection to this spiritual practice began during your childhood. And as a high honor divine being, your family, they were well aware that you had a cord connecting you to the divine source, which means that all of your deepest needs would always be met. So you never needed a deity because you are a divine being. You are a full package. You come with everything you will ever need in order to fulfill your life on earth, right? And so there was a trust that was supposed to grow in you as a divine being over time that would confirm to you that God always had a plan for you and that the right actions would always come to you. In short, you were supposed to understand that God was your source for all things. Now, the destiny of your life was a complete contradiction to the agreement that your lineage had with the deity who was bound to your bloodline, okay? And so you, as the divine being, you are a form of high honor collateral for this deity, right? And so binding you to this supernatural force, it came with some type of an exchange for your family. These people were promised charity in all forms. They were promised mercy, and they were promised aid in any capacity that they needed it at any time. And so they almost were given like the counterfeit version of what your divinity would have been for you if they hadn't interrupted. Right? And so our inner child, it has a need to feel safe, right? In order for us to surrender to our most vulnerable nature, we must feel safe. And so it's also the inner child that is the foundation for self-love, acceptance, self-fulfillment, and inner peace, right? And so because of this contract and because of the family that you were born into, you were never allowed to develop the inner child that was sanctioned for you as a divine being because of the interference. And so in order for the cord between you and this deity to remain intact, you had to carry a certain amount of grief, sadness, pain, hopelessness, and catastrophe. So the words I've just spoken about what you had to carry, I want you to think about what you endured during your childhood, okay? And so although the deity was given you as an offering, the divine never left you, right? So the cord between you and God, it was never severed, no matter the amount of darkness that was projected onto you and into your life. So you may have noticed that success for you, long-term, stable success, it was very hard to come by. And so the idea is that for every time you begin connecting to new ideas and new projects, right? Anytime you begin to feel strong and courageous, or anytime that you displayed a level of commitment to yourself, a tower moment would appear almost without warning. And so all of your well-earned blessing and your earned gifts, they never seemed to make it to your reality. And if they did, they were taken. And so in order to mask the divine thread that ran between you and God, or the divine promise on your life, this family, they meticulously disrupted your plans. They plagued you with difficult times. They triggered sudden change, which led to a level of trauma, right? And this was to appear again and again and again. And so they focused solely on uprooting all things that seemed permanent. Now, the people in your life that you cross paths with that were carrying demonic and evil spirits that would assist in keeping this agenda thriving year after year, decade after decade, right? The people that crossed your paths, they were a part of this agenda, and not all of them consciously knew about the role that they were to play in your life, right? And so you may have noticed that many friends, co-workers, lovers, or any close connections that you seem to develop, they always unraveled due to a certain level of cruelty or wickedness or something morally being wrong, right? And these events were nothing short at times of being downright diabolical. And so these connections, they were meant to trap you. They were meant to tempt you and to victimize you. And so you were attracted to certain types of people that were possessed or could easily be possessed at some point by a low vibrational entity that was solely constructed to keep you from ascending, to keep you from waking up, to keep you from strengthening your cord between you and the divine, right? And so I have this Empress card here. And so your divine feminine energy that allows you to create, nurture, grow, cultivate, love, attract abundance, be empathetic, that was cut short. It was brought to a complete halt. Or that was the intended plan. And remember, the divine feminine essence is alive in every human being, no matter the gender, okay? And so each time you trusted someone or you lived in a state of outrageous openness, right? Where you allowed yourself to be led by your will to love. That is what indicated that this trap would be successful. And so this family planned out that their every desire, they planned that their desire to see you perish would become a success, right? And so you were expected to live in poverty forever, lacking adequate access and resources that you would need to fulfill your needs. And so what was not intended was for your will to love to survive, for your will to fight to strengthen, right? And so your free will somehow continued to thrive. You never succumbed to the reality that they were projecting onto you. I mean, you lived it, you experienced it, but it didn't consume you. It didn't become anything that you believed was truly a reflection of who you were. Now, at times we have dark moments, right? But overall, there was something inside of you that could not be put out. And so the reason why is because your will is intertwined with the will of the divine. And no matter the gravity of your fall, you have the ability to keep rising again and again and again, right? And so these experiences led you to learn about trust, right? You explored what it was like to attempt to rebuild trust in relationships after you continuously deal with people who are almost sent in to attack you or to bring harm to you, right? And so you at some point began to develop a deeper trust for yourself. And as soon as you began to embrace your pain and simply surrender, something changed, right? And so the further that you were pushed from having a secure space in the world, the closer you actually got to learning your own gifts. And one of your greatest abilities is the ability to learn. And your experiences, no matter how brutal, became your greatest teachers, right? And so you started to master your decision making. You began to prioritize your growth, right? You tapped into your brain power. You learned how to retain and restore information, and you began to open yourself up to new knowledge. And so the devastation of your earthly chance at life, it pushed you to stand up in your divine destiny. And so divine intelligence is what became your foundation. And finally, you began to recognize that God was to be the fixed star that you followed. And so everything that they destroyed in your 3D earthly life, you started to believe that, well, if it's being destroyed, then this must not be it. It pushed you to look elsewhere, right? And so it almost had an adverse effect. Like they did so much that they forced you to see and to search and to find what they attempted to hide from you in childhood, right? It's almost like they tied the knot and then they almost untied it. So I have the card here for the law of correspondence. And this law was triggered into full effect once you made God your focal point for all things pertaining to you and your life, right? And so this law basically states, as above, so below, and as below, so above. And so in short, what happens around us is a direct reflection of what is happening in us, or that our internal environment is what determines our external environment, right? And so when you made the shift to look within and to look up to God, you shifted your spiritual energy, right? And once you made that shift, there was no spell and there was no contract that could stop or stagnate you any longer. And so the change that happened inside of you triggered a rites of passage moment, right? And so all of the turmoil and the trauma, this brought you to a state of transformation. It brought you to healing, to courage. It gave you a strength that was almost supernatural. And so at some point you begin to explore your shadow self and you start to heal. Whatever the deep issues were that you were forced to carry in your inner child, you started to unpack those, right? And so this is what made you more ready than ever to begin accessing sacred knowledge, right? And so finally, at whatever age this began to unfold for you, finally you enter the void, right? And so you have made your way to the sacred initiation. And this is the part where you energetically are able to access all the fruits of your labor. It's now you have the ability to receive them. And so the divine energy that was flowing through you in childhood, it was tainted. And at some point you purified it. And once you purified it, now you have full access to your source for everything. And, you know, this was always your soul's journey. And so your family, little did they know, they actually pushed you into your purpose. In all of the loss that was inflicted upon you, it brought you to a state of clearing. And, you know, this clearing, it means that letting go got easier and easier. Detachment got easier and easier, right? Because you started to believe that, listen, more will always come. Right? And so here they are thinking that if they continue to send tower moments, if they destroy your relationships, your jobs, your health, if they destroy your passions and your dreams and the things that you are focused on, they are thinking that you will stay in this perpetual state of grief and sorrow and mourning. But the opposite happened. Like, they didn't account for the God that lived in you. They couldn't see it. They couldn't plan for that because it didn't exist in them, right? And so there was nothing that they could have done that would have stopped you from getting to the finish line. And although it appeared for all those years that you were never going to make it, you know, they couldn't see what was happening internally. They couldn't see what was happening on the inside. And so the beauty about the law of correspondence is that this phase in your life, all the inner work that you have done, it has to come through. It has to be reflected in your external environment. And so that is the season that you are in, right? And so where people thought that you were down, they thought that you would never get up. They thought that you would never recover. They could not see what you were doing inside. They couldn't see your heart. They couldn't see your mind. They couldn't see your spirit, and they couldn't see your soul. And if you have lived in periods of isolation where you cut yourself off from people, they thought that you were as good as dead, right? And so this is almost the moment, this is like your unveiling, right? And so listen, when you lose something again and again, you know, your internal dialogue, it changes from mine to God's, right? And so I ask you to allow this message to leave you assured that your destiny, your divinity, your birthright, it wasn't stolen. Delayed, possibly, but realize that any delay, it was really just a period of learning, and it was a period of growth, right? Our experiences are our greatest teachers. And so those were essentially AP classes, you know, that you just had to complete. Advanced placement. Those were advanced classes that you had to be in until you completed them, because you were going to need every single experience for this next season of life. Every single one of them. You can't take one experience away. You've got to take them all, because it is every one of them that got you to the space and to the position that you are in now, or that you are preparing for next, right? And so yes, delayed, but you benefit from the delay, right? Because you can never be denied of what God says is reserved for you. And so we have the Three of Wands, which means expansion. It means improved finances. It means power moves. It means you can make a move and you can expect to see a return. And so all the times that you attempted to build right? And it was snatched down. Every time you started to think that you were creating something permanent and it was snatched away, that is not the season that you are existing in right now, or the season that you are preparing to walk into, right? And so your moves are moves of power, and you are going to receive a reward for every move you make. Your vision is changing. You can see something in your mind and you can tangibly figure out the path to make it come to fruition in the physical world, right? If at one point you felt bound, you are now going to feel free, right? And so that is what this next season is bringing towards you. And so I ask you to expect this, to feel this, to believe this, and to see this. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in to Tennille Talks, and I'll see you on the next one.